So, is it actually possible for JPEG Mafia to make something that people won't collectively adore anymore? This isn't necessarily criticism, or a compliment, really. And God knows, he's one of the most talented hip-hop artists to emerge in the last 10 years. Even if I've never personally been a massive fan of any individual projects outside of All My Heroes Are Cornballs from 2019, the fact that he is such an insanely creative, self-made musician is worthy of all kinds of respect. Besides, while his album experiences are yet to click with me, my favourite tracks are huge favourites. From Bald, to Sick Nervous and Broke, to 1539 and Calvert, dude has some absolute bangers in him that even the biggest haters would struggle to deny. And then there's Danny Brown, as well. Look, this collab just made sense personality-wise. It feels like it was always destined to happen somehow, with both artists having a similarly self-aware, off-the-wall style of humour that has always linked them in my mind. So when Scaring the Hose was announced, the world went kind of batshit in anticipation for this project, myself included. And then Lean Beef Patty came out, and I went, oh. Which is probably unfair. And I like the song enough too, but you could see fans' slight disappointment in the lead single. Look, maybe this is just another Michael Jackson Bad situation or Adele 25 situation, where the ridiculous, unbelievable hype would have been impossible to live up to, but fundamentally, I think most people were hoping for a JPEG Mafia x Danny Brown collab album, not a JPEG Mafia featuring Danny Brown album. For what it's worth, the title track Scaring the Hose did kind of put off my worries, since both Peggy and Danny have got pretty great verses and absolutely killer hook delivery, and some of the best production I've ever heard from either artist, with that hauntingly out-of-tune saxophone, some great drum work, and that clapping beat. Bro's got some great stamina to keep going at that speed. Good for him. Anyway, yeah, I love that track, one of the best on the album, but what's most interesting to me is the theme of Peggy and Danny's reluctance to play along with mainstream hip-hop ideas, because that's kind of the whole thing with the production, right? A significant portion of the production here feels like a massive middle finger to the old-school hip-hop elitists who'll be turned off by the bizarre production choices that Peggy has become known for over the course of his career. Take Garbage Pail Kids, for example, produced by Peggy, which uses background samples of commercials from 1983 and 1985. The 85 one being particularly interesting as it's for a Japanese meat packing company with a Genghis Khan impersonator. The beat isn't bad, per se, but definitely gives that feeling of weirdness for the sake of being weird that I find it hard to vibe with, and the guitars kicking in towards the back end don't do much to elevate it for me. I like both verses, particularly Danny's, but it's not a track I'm ever particularly thrilled to come back to. On the other hand, it's not like Danny and Peggy are only in it for the experimentation. There's weirdness here, as expected, but there's also tracks that seem to be playing it more straight and narrow, and to be perfectly honest, they're usually my favourites. Burfict is crazy. Those horns are just perfect, and the bass is such a necessary touch to elevate the track to the spectacular levels that it reaches, complemented perfectly by the most fire verse in the whole project from Peggy, who bounces from tons of clever references to right-wing politicians, using their names as well as a bunch of signature pop culture references to essentially just show off. But there's so much charisma packed into it that it's impossible to not fall in love with the whole thing. Deeper into the project, we find God Loves You, another massive standout with a crazy fun gospel sample mixed in with a bass-heavy rap beat. The religious themes of the production contrasting hilariously with the absolutely ridiculous sexual imagery that both performers create. And Danny's verse might be his most creative on the whole album, with lyrics about parting the Red Sea, David and Goliath being an allegory for this girl and his dick, and squirting holy water. It's a lot to process, for sure, but every time I can't help but be taken in by the energy of it. Anyway, all of this is to say that I do have a real appreciation for what this album is trying to do overall, and honestly, most of the time, Scaring the Hose is a pretty solid experience, but the unique mixing on the project means that the tracks that aren't designed to be more outlandishly creative end up feeling so much flatter than they normally would. Orange Juice Jones, Run the Jewels, and Ho, Heaven on Earth, just end up feeling like demo-quality tracks rather than the tight songs that they should have been. The sacrifice of individual track quality for overall experience is just so noticeable too, especially in the second half. Run the Jewels is just pointless. And no, I don't think the track itself is particularly good, but the lack of direction in the minute-long runtime is just so obvious. More than any other track here, I cannot imagine a single reason why I would come back to it, and despite the short runtime, it's a really annoying placement between two of the best tracks on the album. Look man, this is a good and super creative album, And when Melon gave it a 9 out of 10, I totally understood it, especially given how great Danny Brown is on the whole and how unique of a voice JPEG Mafia is in the current hip-hop scene. But aside from, like, Steppa Pig, Scaring the Hose Burfict, and God Loves You, I just never really have a massive desire to return to any of the stuff on this album. It's a highly entertaining listen, but the things that annoy me about it are just too prevalent to really find it as insanely good as everyone else seems to. I'm happy for you guys though, and this is a very solid project. Thanks for watching.